today, muscle contractions, right? So when you think about a contraction, there's a lot of different things that you can manipulate on a contraction, right? Lots of different things. But let's start with the mechanics of contraction. Let's talk about contraction types, okay? So basically, if I'm coming up, like if I go up, that's your concentric contraction. If I'm coming down, lowering a weight, that's an eccentric contraction. And then if I'm holding up like this, that is an isometric contraction. So if I'm lowering it, eccentric, I'm coming up, concentric, if I'm holding it or posing, that is an isometric contraction. So basically those are the three different contractions. Now a lot of times people just focus on one over the other, say, oh, you grow more from this or another. There's a lot that really goes into it. And also everything we need to talk about is how you can manipulate contractions, because for example, when I'm lifting weights, there's certain portions of the lift that become easier, right? And how do we correct for that? And then also, we have to talk about things like repetition, speed, okay? So those are the things that we're gonna cover today. So let's start off with like concentric versus eccentric contractions, right? So again, I'm coming up, that's concentric, I'm lowering the weight, that's eccentric. Now, if I ask people on this podcast, if I go, hey guys, what causes the most growth, eccentric or concentric? Almost immediately, unanimously, everyone's gonna say eccentric, okay? Am I right? Right? That's what you guys, most people will say. I know like when I taught in university, I go, hey, what's the best contraction? Is it eccentric, concentric? Everyone's like, oh, eccentric, no doubt about it, blah, blah. Here's the thing, it's a little trickier than we like to think, okay? When they do studies and they show eccentric contractions, are there studies that show eccentric contractions cause more muscle damage and more growth? Absolutely. But here's the thing you have to understand. My next question to you is, what can you lift more weight with? Can you lower more weight or raise more weight, right? And the answer is what? You can lower more weight. So for example, if I fail on a curl, okay, or if I fail on a bench press and I'm with Paul can help me get that weight up, but I can still control it and lower it on the way down, okay? So I can lift more, maybe 150% more on the lowering phase than on the upward phase. But in studies that show you can actually gain more muscle on the downward eccentric phase, they adapt to how much weight that the eccentric portion can handle. What does that mean? If I can lift 100 pounds maximally concentrically and 150 pounds on the way down, then what they'll do is they'll control for percent intensity. So 80% intensity of 100 pounds is 80 pounds, right? Okay? So, but 80% intensity, right, of say 200 pounds is 160 pounds. So the point is, if you can lift more eccentrically and concentrically on these studies where you're showing you're gaining more muscle on the eccentric phase, they're technically lifting more weight on the eccentric phase, okay? So basically, again, that's the whole point of what I'm basically saying here, okay? So I think that's key to understand. Did that make sense what I was saying?
100%.
Okay, so when I lift with a normal barbell curl or a normal bench, am I lifting more weight on the way down and the way up naturally? No. And that's the point. I'm coming up, I'm not lifting more weight on the way down than up. Those studies would have more weight on the way down than up. We're not doing that. So basically, in fact, there are studies that have compared eccentric lowering of a weight to concentric lifting of a weight when you have the same exact weight and you actually gain more muscle on the concentric phase of the lift. Now that's kind of shocking, right? What's the point? What's the take-home message? The concentric portion of the lift is important for growth. Why is it important for growth? That's where you get the pump. Like you actually get more metabolic stress on the upward phase of a lift. So it's still very important. But the next question is, so how can I take advantage of those studies on the eccentric portion? What I'd have to do is if I'm training with Paul and I'm doing bicep curls, what's Paul going to have to do to mimic those studies? So I'm coming up and he's going to push down on the way down. And that is going to maximum, that's what those studies are showing, you're getting more growth on the eccentric phase. So if I'm coming up and Andy and Paul are pushing down, that is where I would actually get more growth on the eccentric phase. So I'm really trying to mimic those studies. So the advantage of an eccentric contraction is you can lift more weight. You only take advantage of that if you add more weight to that portion. The thing to understand though is you're going to cause a lot of muscle damage when you do that, and it's going to take a lot longer to recover. So you have to factor that in. It's not something you do every day. So, so I think that's the key point. Like, think about it. Say like your quads, or you want to bring up your quads. You lift the weight up, have your partner push on the way down. Lift up, have your partner push on the way down. So those are the key points I want to take home on that.
From personal experience, it's like nothing you've ever experienced. You'll know whenever you go heavy eccentrics and you actually create some type of muscle damage.
Yeah. And the other thing is the concentric phase, like I said, you actually activate more muscle tissue on a concentric phase than an eccentric phase. Why is that important? Because that develops that metabolic stress and that pump. Both of those are important for muscle growth. That's really, really important. It's also important for keeping you motivated in the gym. You know,
I always feel that trainers will try and add that in to all of their training down the road. So they'll watch someone plateau on a movement, especially bench press, let's say, and then they'll start doing that, or hammer curls or seated preacher curls, the best. They'll start doing it, but most people don't know when to apply it or how to apply it, and then they overuse it and overstress the muscle because they're trying to stimulate.
Exactly.
Always trying to stimulate the muscle.
Exactly.
Feed it, rest it, and get back to work.
Exactly right. And that's a good point. I think what happens, a lot of you guys will watch this, and you'll see that, like, you might use this, and you'll see growth, and then you use it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to stop making gains because your body can't recover. So like any other tool, and we're going to get to that later, everything is a tool, right? Everything is a tool. By the way, guys, how's the audio here? I want them to give us feedback on the audio. Because Sam just chimed in. So, okay, so that's a key point that I want to emphasize on that. So the next thing we're talking about, we talk about eccentric versus concentric. Now we're going to talk about isometric contractions, right? Now, there was a guy, this was, I don't know, was it back in the 1920s or something? I could be told.
Charles Atlas.
Charles Atlas, right? We gotta pull the photo. Pull the photo of Charles Atlas.
We said we were going to pull it up last time. We talked about it. We never pulled it up.
You guys know, hey, Charles Atlas right now, back, I want to see, when was Charles Atlas around?
This was...
Get this right. Come on, Ray.
Was it the 20s?
Yeah, 20s it was big.
Yeah.
Dude,
Heck
look,
yeah,
he was
Ray.
born in 1872.
Well, you got to show the people. They don't
No,
even
dude,
know what's
do
going
that
on.
one. Do that one.
Pull the screen over.
Blow it
it
up,
over.
dude. Dude, he was, now, Grant.
The anticipation.
Dude, you got to see this. Charles Atlas, he was born. Okay, you pulling that up?
Yeah.
He's going to pull it up on screen. Now, Charles Atlas was born in 1872, okay? So you get really, you got to think of the times, okay? So
Bam!
I'm pretty sure I was at an IHOP in.
Wait, can you zoom in, Andy?
Zoom in.
I was at an IHOP in Manasquan, and I'm pretty sure
Dude.
his
Watch your head.
great niece was the one working there. 'Cause
Wow.
She saw us talking about bodybuilding and fitness industry stuff, and the first thing she said is, "Do you guys know who Atlas is?"
Well,
And
yeah.
luckily, I was around 50, 60-year-old ex-competitors, and they said, "Of course."
Those are the best.
When you
guys
got
to be
comics made about
At
you.
an IHOP.
Yeah, that's the best guys to be around. Dude, look at these selling employees.
She
This
has
is
photos
awesome.
of them together. Clearly, no, you know.
Only
family members
15
or
minutes a day. But you see, basically,
So-
back here was, I don't know, 1920 or 1930 or whatever. Charles Atlas, for back then, he was jacked.
Yes.
He was enormous for back
That,
then.
if someone saw him walking in the streets
Yeah.
back then, they would stop and
Yeah,
stare
they'd
as
stop
if he
and
was
stare.
Kai Green.
They would stop
Yep.
and stare as if he was Kai Green. Back then, Charles Atlas was like Kai Green. And you know what? Guess what? Charles Atlas only trained one way, right? He just flexed his muscles. That's it. Isometric contractions. So Charles Atlas literally just flexed his muscles. So like, you know, I got this table underneath me. I'm just like contracting against it, holding it, holding it, holding it. You know what I mean?
Was it a consistent repetition or was it a constant?
It's a constant.
force?
You know what I'm saying? Or like, for example, if I'm with Paul, we're like in a hotel room, and he's gonna do a curl, like he's curling, but it's in a static position, right? Yeah. Ah! So Paul's just doing that, and literally that's all he did. And like I said, he was like Kai Green in the 1920s.
So you're telling me if I do that, I can turn into that?
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
If you've ever
Selling.
asked someone that used to train in the 1940s and 50s, before there was real weights, they used to take buckets of water, connect them onto a pole or any type of stick, and curl. It
That's
didn't
it.
matter what it was. You needed weight. Back then, everyone was doing, hard labor.
That's it.
So the biggest guys were into construction because they were just
Yeah.
moving weight all day.
That's it.
You want big forearms? Look at granite workers. All
Yeah.
they do is grab stuff.
Yeah, we're in the
Bother
wrong
their
job.
hands. You know?
So you're telling me I
That's
can
why we're
get
not
big while
growing.
getting
No.
paid? Oh,
That's
man.
why we're not growing.
Yeah.
We just get
we're in the wrong
smart.
industry. Man. We got to get into construction. I'm telling you. But Ray's right though, and I think the point is that isometric contractions can cause muscle growth. So and people ignore this part of it. So if you watch Ray train, if you watch him when he trains, and we just had a long conversation with Trey, Kid, who actually just got a couple new pros, I think, on the weekend.
Yeah.
Ray and myself were talking about like the focus and the focus that you need to have when you contract, and part of that is that peak contraction that you're going to get, like when you're coming up and you're squeezing the muscle. That's an isometric contraction. Now, intriguingly enough, isometric contractions actually cause you to essentially cause blood flow restriction. So if I'm isometrically contracting, I'll actually squeeze the muscle, and it will actually cause blood flow restriction of the arteries themselves, right? So imagine here's your arteries here, and you have the muscles here, okay? Or if this is the artery, this is an artery here, and muscles are here. When I contract, it squeezes the artery together, okay? So when I isometric contract, it squeezes it together, and we get blood flow restriction. Blood flow restriction actually causes muscle growth. You get increased metabolic stress, increased pump, increased swelling. And so that itself is actually going to cause muscle growth. So my main point is that there are a couple things you can do. One is between sets you can flex your muscles. Arnold Schwarzenegger talked about that back in Arnold Schwarzenegger's encyclopedia, and he was right. So you would call that intra-set flexing.
I've actually tried it a couple times, and it is 10 times harder.
It's way harder.
Sometimes you just don't know if you're ready for the next set.
It's way harder.
Yep.
In fact, like, you know what, guys? Like, try it seriously. Try that today. So go out there, and whatever exercise you're doing, say you're doing chest today, okay? So you finish your set, and in between, keep the muscle contracted the whole time, like squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. You keep, basically you're causing blood flow restriction, you're trapping the metabolites, you're trapping the blood in there, and now you're actually gonna get a lot more growth. So you wanna try that intraset flexing, isometric holds, that's gonna actually cause a lot of growth. So that's the eccentric phase. Now, next thing we're gonna talk about is repetition speed?
Yep.
Okay, repetition speed is actually one of the more controversial issues. Basically, what it comes down to is a lot of times you'll have people lift the weight and then they'll go slow, 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 slow. But what does the research say that, and why do people go slow, 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 slow? In fact, there's a video that came out. We released an infographic earlier that showed a study that showed faster contractions actually cause more muscle growth than slower contractions. But there's a couple things I want to point out. The infographic itself says fast and what, Andy?
Controlled.
Controlled, right? I'm gonna let Paul repeat that again. It said fast and what?
I think you said controlled. though.
Controlled.
I
Fast.
heard controlled.
Yeah. Now, people who will attack the infographic will automatically say fast. What do they not include? Controlled.
Controlled.
You know what I'm saying?
It's the best when you compare long distance runners to Maurice Green. But
Yeah.
what they don't understand is his sprint, his 40 yard, his 60 yard is controlled.
It's controlled. It's controlled. And I think that's the point, right? So people will automatically think, oh, you're just being sloppy. In other words, they make a synonym to fast sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case. That's not the case. And so the point is, if I got a ton of weight, like Paul, Paul routinely squats with 4+ plates aside. If you have 4 plates on your back and you're squatting, you're not just dropping that weight, okay? Because it'll crush you. You have to control it. You know what I mean? He's not just dropping it. So it's controlled. It's controlled, but as long as you control this, as long as you control it, actually Will just actually chimed in. Will,
Should I get him?
Yeah, get
Should I
Will.
get him?
No, Will sees me. Will, you
It'll
can
be a
come
little
in.
delay. I'm getting him.
I'm going to let Will go ahead and chime in as well.
Well,
But essentially, that's one thing to understand. Okay, so when we say fast, that doesn't mean sloppy, because one of the first things people will say against that is, oh, you're just going to injure yourself.
Mm-hmm. I see a lot of athletes go into the gym, and because they tell them fast twitch muscle fibers will grow better, they'll take it to compound movements like deadlifts and race through them and sloppily almost hurt themselves every set.
And that's what people think. Like, they'll read our infographic and they'll delete the controlled and just think those guys drop in the weight. It's not what we're saying. You control the weight, and actually, here's the thing. Here's another thing too. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to have Will chime in on this. But here's the thing it's important to understand. The weights can oftentimes dictate the speed.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it for a second. Say I can lift 225 on a bench for 10 reps. My first rep's going to be relatively fast. What happens when I get to rep 7? It's not going to go as fast. What happens when I get 9? It's going to be slow. What happens when I get 10? I don't care how fast I want to go. It's going to only go so fast. So weight and fatigue are going to dictate, in large part, speed, right? Now, so the point is, my point is I want to emphasize that it doesn't mean, fast does not mean sloppy. Because when people automatically assume that fast is injury, they're thinking sloppy. Not the case. So mechanistically speaking, then the other thing is, people say, well, those studies, basically they're controlling for the speed of the lift, but that's not in reality. Like, that doesn't happen in reality. But mechanistically, basically the study infographic we showed a faster contraction caused more growth than a slower contraction. But mechanistically, why would controlling for speed change why you would have more or less muscle growth as far as like a fast versus slow contraction? I'm not wrapping my head around that. So I don't see why that would be the case. There's a number of, so let's go to mechanisms. Why would fast contractions cause more muscle growth than slow contractions? Okay. Number one theory is this. You have cross bridges, okay? Basically, you have, in a muscle, when you have tension, you have these filaments that are called actin and myosin. And when they form a cross bridge, right, they bear tension, essentially. There's tension, there's tension on each of those cross bridges, okay? If I go really slow, I have more time to build up these cross bridges, okay? If I'm a little bit faster, I have less time to build up cross bridges. So there's more tension per cross bridge than if I go slow. So if I go slow, there's less tension per cross bridge, less stress per cross bridge, less reason for the cross bridge to adapt. Okay? So that's one potential reason that there is. Now, one of the arguments against fast contractions when you talk about slow contractions is you have more time under tension. That's correct on a per repetition basis. So if I do one rep and I'm like this and this, compared to boom and just kind of controlling it down and boom and controlling it down, right? They'll say, well, there's more time under tension. There's more time under tension per rep. But if I'm going faster, I can get more total repetitions. Probably time under tension, the whole set is probably just the same. And you did more total work, okay? And you had more stress per cross bridge, okay? So, but I'm gonna take more of like a neurophys approach here, a mechanics approach here, and I'm gonna bring in William Wallace here, who we call the neuromechanic. And William's actually the smartest guy I know on like mechanics, so I'm gonna let Will jump in here. If you want to pull up a seat, he's gonna talk about. He's our guest here, where he's gonna talk about fast versus controlled contractions. And I just want your honest, non-biased thought on these concepts.
This is William Wallace. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
What's going on, guys?
Such a dope name before you start.
So,
I know, isn't that the coolest name?
It is.
Like I mean,
You walk into
William
the room,
Wallace
hi,
is the
nice
coolest.
to meet you. What's your name?
Will, what's your Instagram?
Instagram is will.a.wallace.
And if you just go if you go to like Muscle Ph.D, you'll see that we're friends. So just look up William and you'll see he's one of the guys I'm following. You should follow him too.
All right, well, I guess let's get into it. So what Doc was explaining, there's been some people have come out and there might be an argument against fast eccentrics. Again, the biggest thing is these guys are advocating for controlled eccentrics and controlled heavy eccentrics. Yeah, that's a thing, but of course, we're not talking about doing that recklessly. Now, when you do a fast eccentric with a high external load, now again, assuming it's controlled, what Doc was just talking about with cross bridges, well, the faster that weight is traveling, the less time those cross bridges have to come together. Because of that, now you have less fibers that are less cross bridge attachments. Now you have more tension per cross bridge. So likely you're having more muscle damage when you have fast eccentrics with a heavy external load. When people make the claim that slow eccentrics, slow controlled are better, well, what they're really doing is advocating for, and again, as Doc said before, concentric contractions have higher muscle activation. During an eccentric contraction, there's actually some neurological inhibition, and that starts at the spinal cord. So the more we train with eccentric contractions, the higher that we actually can begin to voluntarily activate muscle on the eccentric. So that's an adaptation to eccentric training. Now, when people are advocating for slow, controlled eccentrics, what they're really doing is they're actually adapting to activate more muscle on the downward phase. So now what you're just seeing, again, is that you're increasing time under tension. You're also increasing muscle activation as you go down, and then when you come up, it may be the same as it was before, but now total, over the course of that set, muscle activation might have been higher. So now you're talking about getting hypertrophy from a mechanical tension standpoint, right? But fast maximal eccentrics or fast heavy eccentrics, now we're talking about hypertrophy from more of a muscle damaging standpoint. So it's not to say that one is better than the other, but if fast heavy eccentrics are a novel stimulus, which they are to most people, then starting out, you're going to see more growth from that, likely. You'll see growth from the other way too, but the fast, heavy eccentrics, it's more novel. And if that's the case, then we'll likely, at least starting out, see more growth from that standpoint. And we're likely talking about more of a muscle damaging response. So yeah, it's not to say one's better than the other, they're both different. But I think a more novel approach, you're going to see different kinds of adaptations, one being maybe more hypertrophy, at least in the first 8 to 16 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the other thing, and Will brings up a really good point, it's always this dichotomy. People like to set up dichotomies where dichotomies don't exist, right? So people like to set up dichotomies where dichotomies don't actually exist. And in this case, like Will said, constant growth is constantly introducing novelty into your world. So if you do lift fast all the time, then what's going to happen is eventually, you may adapt to that. But
I think the body is so smart that it'll actually adapt faster than you think it will.
That's the point. That's the point. And so basically, like, people are like, slow's better than fast better than slow. But like Will said, what's better is periodizing. Use them both. Use them wisely, and you'll keep growing. So really, it's not like, oh, you're fast bad, you're just going to get injured, and go slow, there's more time retention. It's like, periodize. Utilize them both. And I think that's the really point. They're different mechanisms of action, and periodization is going to probably lead to greater long-term gains. So, good point.
Good.
Thanks, Will.
You
Appreciate
crushed
it.
it. And it's funny, everything he said from a
He
scientific
did crush it.
aspect
He did crush it.
is what I've been doing on a dimmed down level. I like time under tension in a workout when I'm just trying to get, not warmed up, but continue the pump through the workout.
Exactly.
Because I'm trying to limit my injury at all times.
Well, now that is a
because
good
if
point.
you're injured, you're not getting better. You're getting worse.
Yeah, so that's a good point too. So, I mean, going slow could be also a tool too when you can't utilize a heavier load.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can use other methods to do so. So, they're all tools.
You got something to chime in on, Ryan?
Ryan Lowry is my brother right over there. You come in, Ryan, if you want.
Come in, Ryan. I guess no one's ever seen you on screen.
Yeah. Ryan, here we go.
I was asking who the Jack guy is in the green polo.
Oh, thanks, dude. This is my brother right here, Ryan Lowry. My partner in crime. So,
what a great episode, man. Everyone's
I
gonna
love
love
this, man. Can you feel the love in here? Can you feel it?
Feel something.
So, yeah. So anyway, so that's Ryan Lowry. Follow him, Ryan. Actually, if it's Ryan Plowry. If you look up, it's Ryan P. Lowry on
What is your
Instagram.
middle name, Ryan?
Patrick.
Patrick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ryan P. Lowry. So
You could pass for a Patrick too.
He could.
You could.
He could. I like the blue too, man. Looks good on you. You bet. So now we talked about that. What other things we talk about contractions? Oh, isotonic versus accommodating. There's a lot of knowledge in this one. There's a lot. This is a really good, guys. If you didn't watch this whole thing, I'd go back to Facebook and rewatch this. Freaking sick.
Start from the
Miriam
beginning.
says hi.
But let us know too how you guys feel about all the different people interacting, and let us know in the comments down below if you guys like something like that.
Yeah, or Snapchat us. Okay, so, okay. So, okay, what? Okay, all right, good. So anyway, there we go. Last thing's accommodating resistance. So, sorry, a little interruption. So anyway, last thing is what were we talking about?
Accommodating
Oh,
resistance.
accommodating resistance. Sorry, there's a little bit of an executive thing that went on. I had to take care of. So accommodating resistance essentially means that, like, when I'm lifting weight, say I'm doing a bench press, where's it? Or actually, think about squats. Okay. Almost 95% of the time I see someone load the bar up on squats, inevitably, what are they going to do? They're going to put the bar on their back, and they're going to go down 1/4 of the way down and come back up, right? We all see it. We all see it. And every once in a while, you'll see a guy like Paul who puts a lot of weight on their back and hits the floor, right? You know, and I'm impressed with that. That impresses me. But here's the thing. Why do we do these 1/4 reps? Because it's easier on the top. So the weight becomes easier as you move up on a squat, okay? So what do? That's because you have a greater mechanical advantage near full extension. So there's a concept called accommodating resistance. Who's heard of accommodating resistance? All right, okay, all of us have. Basically what that means is that you will add bands to the bar or chains to the bar, which looks cooler, right? I mean, you know what I mean?
Who doesn't want to start change?
If you're listing with chains,
You're like, this dude's hardcore.
Yeah.
And then
All
you're
guys
on
use
chains.
change just
Yeah.
the sound of them.
Just
Then I tried
because.
a band and I never went back to
yeah,
chains.
yeah, I know.
Dude,
They're so much more convenient.
So much more, and it's more control.
I just walk
It
around
doesn't
my neck.
sway,
Yeah.
It keeps it all
Yeah,
there.
that's true. Chains do kind of like
Yeah.
that. So, but basically what we found, actually, Jordan Joy, we were just talking about Jordan the other day, and Andy here basically used to work with Jordan. And
Interned under Jordan.
he interned under Jordan. And Jordan was a phenomenal researcher, just amazing individual. And we used to work together in the same lab. We ran a study headed up by Jordan, where we basically took NCAA athletes and we had them do accommodating resistance, meaning they had bands on while they either did like bench press or deadlifts. And these people gained more lean mass and more strength when they had bands and not bands. Why? Because the band gets harder all the way at the top. So say you're doing a leg press and you do band and leg press, on the bottom it's going to be hard. As you come up, though, the bands are going to get harder and harder when you have the best mechanical advantage. So the tension's always going to be there. So we highly recommend that. Anything we want to add to that?
Nope, I think it's good.
If you want to add to it, I mean, they only added bands once per week, and it was only 5 weeks. And
Yeah.
They got bigger and stronger.
And they got
in 5
bigger and
weeks.
stronger over 5 weeks time.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Got 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes. Oh, that's right, because I'm getting on a call with the guys from Generation Iron.
Yes. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So we're gonna be doing a lot more filming here in the facility on Generation Iron. So we're real excited about that. So we'll keep you posted on that. So should
Let's
I
try
take
to
questions?
fire. Let's try to fire.
Do you
a
want?
few
Should we go rapid fire?
Rapid fire.
Okay, so guys, you know the rules on rapid fire. I'm reminding myself. I can't get into detail, but I go fast. Let's roll. Okay.
Does eccentric training equal more muscle damage?
Sorry, I gotta see this. This is my boy here. Michael Rutherford. It's Mark Rutherford. I thought it was my. Well, it's a cool last name. My friend's name is Michael Rutherford. So what was yours?
Does eccentric training cause more muscle damage?
If you have more weight, yes. If you add weight, you do force eccentric, yes. Is this called manipulating the strength curve through body mechanics? It's called manipulating the strength curve, yes. Higher or low reps, both. What about time under tension? It's a good variable, but you can get it with high reps or you can get it with slower speeds. Effects of low carbs on contraction intensity. If you're not low carb adapted, it'll go down. If you are low carb adapted, it won't be affected. Shrugs / heavy carries, it'll make your traps grow. Does pulsing of a muscle produce any better hypertrophy and strength? Pulsing?
Like, do you know how, like, when you're doing calf raises, when you fail, you just sit there and...
Oh, yeah. If it's partial reps, yes, it'll make you grow. What reps are good for gaining muscle? All of them. Cardio before or after weight training. If it's legs, don't do it, is what I would say. Otherwise, after. How do you feel about Tendo units for measuring speed in athletics? If you're a power lifter or a speed athlete, yeah. If you're a bodybuilder, you don't need to use it.
One second.
Right. Okay. Your favorite men's physique athlete, Ray. Ray, come over here to do a quick pose.
Another pose. Here's Ray again.
Yeah.
What do we want?
He's competing here. Ray's
2
prepping
weeks.
here. Ray's going to compete here in 2 weeks.
Seductively take out.
Ray's my good friend here. He's going to compete in the Tampa Pro.
This is actually the Muscle Ph.D. now.
Yeah. He looks sick, man. He looks
Look at
good,
me,
man.
Yeah, but if you put your arms back,
Damn, dog!
That's it, man. You guys didn't know.
Take the picture,
Didn't know.
take the picture.
That was good.
All right.
Generation Iron 3, it's actually going to be like more of a Muscle Ph.D. Generation Iron episode. So we'll actually have our own show. I do it on alternating bicep curls. It works. Awesome. Okay. Are you ever... Whatever. No. Keto... Okay. Well, let's see.
Drop
What
sets?
about drop setting? It works really well. 1 or 1.5 grams of protein for muscle gain.
Oh, God.
Alternate them.
2 more. I'm trying.
Will incorporating cardio for power lifter increase strength? No. I have a question. Is it true that shoulder press are bad to do because it takes your socket? And I mean, if you do it with bad form, sure, but no. I think shoulder presses are great. If you could only do one ab exercise, what would it be? Crunches.
on a decline bench.
Yeah, there you go.
Crunches is my
Crunch
favorite.
on a decline bench.
This
Why no cardio after legs? Because it'll interfere
Steady
with
state.
your steady state cardio. It'll interfere with growth.
And that's my last one. You got one more.
What do you think about Tribulus? Is a good idea or not good choice for building muscle? I think it's good, especially when you're dieting or you've come off a contest. I think it can help.